In other words, under public policy, this has to go somewhere. Right now, the credit card company has to post it on their ledger as an asset and apply it against their annual taxes. Corporations don't pay taxes, they pass it on to the consumers that partake of their things, their goods, okay? But whatever liability that corporation or entity might incur, this acceptance can be posted against that, and the person that they're passing it on to has to accept it. It has value. And it just becomes a circle. Okay? That's the way it works under public policy. They get to use your acceptance to discharge their liabilities, because what you've given them is in fact money, represented by your signature. Well, you say, how is that? Well, here's what it looks like on a ledger. You purchase something on a credit card and it gets entered over here. You get a statement with that entry on it, and then you'll get one for $225 and $25 and $17.50, and over here you get a total of whatever. Total. And this is the bill you get. Okay? Now, this is already entered in the ledger when you get the bill. This is the money. Okay? It's represented by the goods that you've received. Okay? This is actually a receipt, similar to a restaurant receipt. When you apply your acceptance across it, that total, and send it in as payment, that total comes over here. Okay? And it offsets each side. Now what happens is that this is over here as an asset to this entity, and they have the same thing over here on another balance sheet, because they have another set of bills over here that totals, and they take this and move it over here against it, and they can accept it for value and move it over here. That's the way it works. How is that any different than taking a check that you send them, sending that and putting that over here, and then them taking it, they got a bill over here, and then they take that check or these funds from here and move it over here? It's the exact same thing. Okay? The only difference is that you're not expending the debt instruments that you've received in exchange for your labor. That's the only difference. It's just a different concept in the way of thinking. Okay? And there's all kinds of people say, you can't possibly do that, it doesn't work. Guess what? It does work. Okay? It does work. If they want to take you to court, now the judge is going to make it work. He doesn't have any choice. He holds the principal obligation to make it work. He's the constitutor. He's agreed by his oath of office to pay the debts and obligations of another. You charge him on one side, they charge him on the other. He holds the fuse. He's got to discharge it. If he doesn't, he's holding an awful lot of voltage. Okay? That's the way it works. Now, there are going to be times when they'll take and let's talk about it in this aspect. What happens when a credit card company or writes off your debt? They turn it over to a collection agency. In other words, what they did is they negotiated your total down here for 50% of what it was in credits over here and sold it to this entity over here. What happens to the other 50%? They move it right over here and take it off these taxes. Well, how does that work? Just like what we're talking about. They get it deducted. How? Dollar for dollar. Right off the top. For those of you who operate a business, when you write off a bad debt, where do you take it off of? Your taxes. How do you do that? There's provision made for it, isn't there? And what does it become to the person that you charge it off against? Income. Does it not? If you don't pay your debt and somebody charges it off and they send you a 1099, guess what you got? A problem. You got income. They can do that, can't they? I've had it done to me. Okay? That's what they're doing. All they're doing is moving it from one side of the balance sheet to the other. They just want to do it their way. You say, no, you're not. You're going to do it my way. Okay? That's the way it works. All right. It doesn't matter if it's IRS. It doesn't matter if it's property tax. The only problem that we're really having a struggle with is in the mortgage world. Because with a deed of trust, they don't have to go to court. They could just come and take your property. They get a writ of execution or a writ of restitution, and now you got a problem. They just come and move you out. I put in here several different letters that we use. There's one for Internal Revenue. There's one for several other types of credit accounts, Department of Transportation. Now, there's a whole litany list of responses that a person can make with all these different things. Now, depending upon who's doing what, and I determine that in my own mind and largely on an experimental basis, I'll write one letter to one entity, and then for another reason I'll write another letter to another entity. And I'll word it a little differently, or I'll add in something else, and I'll request like this 1099 OID, original issue discount. Okay? I don't really understand all that that encompasses and entails. I know it's fairly important, but I haven't got my mind all the way around that concept yet. I don't know whether it's necessary or not. I assume that it probably is at some point, but it's one of those things that is so difficult for me to comprehend that it takes me a while, and then I'll see an example or I'll see something happen and I'll say, oh, now I understand, because I'm a very visual person. I have to see it. Once I see it, I can do it. Okay? Once I see it either in form or in theory, and I can see it demonstrated in my mind, I've got it. Okay? Other people can just hear the words or the concept, and all of a sudden there it is, and they function right along. One of these such form letters is back in here. Oh, most of the way back. It's probably 10 pages in. It says, Dear Clerk in Charge, I accept for value all related endorsements and documents to the above listed case accounts front and back, in accord with UCC 3419 and Public Policy HGR 192. whereby public policy insurance supersedes public law. For adjustment of the deficiency of the account, I request that you place my acceptance of deficiency on the Circuit District Court docket, as I am the holder in due course, whereby I reserve the right of first refusal, blah, 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 blah. And I say, somebody explain that to me.